Hello, everyone. My name is Mama Bunny, and I'm so happy to see you here back at the burrow. And to all of our new friends, hello. It's so nice to meet you. How was your day? I hope it went well. And now that you're here, my day's gotten even better. Last time, I read the first two stories of Frog and Toad are friends. And I promised to read the next two, and that's just what I'm gonna do. Oh, but we can't have a story unless we're all comfy cozy. So make sure you're wearing something comfy. And don't forget to bring your favorite stuffy. I think they're gonna want to hear the story too, don't you? Well then, are we all comfy? Let's get started, shall we? Today's story is called A Lost Button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last, they went back home to Toad's house.
"Oh, drat,"
said Toad.
"not only do my feet hurt, but I've lost one of my buttons on my jacket." "Don't worry,"
said Frog.
"we will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button."
They walked back to the large meadow, and they began to look for the button in the tall grass.
"Here is your button,"
cried Frog.
"That is not my button,"
said Toad.
"That button is black. My button was white."
Toad put the black button in his pocket. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button? I found one."
"That is not my button,"
said Toad.
"That button has 2 holes. My button had 4 holes."
Toad put the button with the 2 holes in his pocket. And they went back to the woods and looked on the dark paths.
"Here is your button,"
said Frog.
"That is not my button,"
cried Toad.
"That button is small. My button was big."
Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came out from behind a tree.
"I heard that you were looking for a button,"
he said.
"Here is one that I just found." "That is not my button,"
wailed Toad.
"That button is square. My button was round."
Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud.
"Here is your button,"
said Frog.
"That is not my button,"
shouted Toad.
"That button is thin. My button was thick."
Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed,
"The whole world is covered with buttons, and not one of them is mine."
Toad ran home and slammed the door. There, on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button.
"Oh,"
said Toad.
"It was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog."
Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. Oh, wasn't that so kind of him? Our next story is called A Swim. Toad and Frog went down to the river.
What a day for a swim,
said Frog.
Yes,
Said Toad.
I will go behind these rocks and put on my bathing suit. I don't wear a bathing suit,
said Frog.
Well, I do,
said Toad.
After I put on my bathing suit, you must not look at me until I get into the water. Why not?
Asked Frog.
Because I look funny in my bathing suit, that is why,
said Toad. Frog closed his eyes when Toad came out from behind the rocks. Toad was wearing his bathing suit.
Don't peek,
he said. Frog and Toad jumped into the water. They swam all afternoon. Frog swam fast and made big splashes. Toad swam slowly and made smaller splashes. A turtle came along the riverbank.
Frog, tell that turtle to go away,
said Toad.
I do not want him to see me in my bathing suit when I come out of the river.
Frog swam over to the turtle.
Turtle,
said Frog,
you will have to go away. Why should I?
Asked the turtle.
Because Toad thinks that he looks funny in his bathing suit, and he does not want you to see him,
said Frog. Some lizards were sitting nearby.
Does Toad really look funny in his bathing suit?
They asked. A snake crawled out of the grass.
If Toad looks funny in his bathing suit,
said the snake,
then I, for one, want to see him.
We want to see him too, said 2 dragonflies. Me too, said a field mouse. I have not seen anything funny in a long time. Frog swam back to Toad.
I am sorry, Toad,
he said.
Everyone wants to see how you will look. Then I will stay right here until they go away,
said Toad. The turtle and the lizards and the snake and the dragonflies and the field mouse all sat on the riverbank. They waited for Toad to come out of the water.
Please,
cried Frog.
Please go away.
But no one went away. Toad was getting colder and colder. He was beginning to shiver and sneeze.
I will have to come out of the water,
said Toad.
I am catching a cold.
Toad climbed out of the river. The water dripped out of his bathing suit and down onto his feet. The turtle laughed. The lizards laughed. The snake laughed. The field mouse laughed. And Frog laughed.
What are you laughing at, Frog?
said Toad.
I am laughing at you, Toad.
said Frog.
Because you do look funny in your bathing suit. Of course I do,
said Toad. Then he picked up his clothes and went home. Oh, that wasn't very kind of them. I thought he looked rather dashing in his bathing suit. Well, I think because there's one last story for this book, I will give you an extra treat and give you an extra bedtime story tonight. How does that sound? But afterwards, we have to go to sleep. It's getting late. And I would hate to keep you up past your bedtime. Our last story for the night is called The Letter. Toad was sitting on his front porch. Frog came along and said,
What is the matter, Toad? You are looking sad. Yes,
said Toad.
this is my sad time of day. It is the time when I wait for the mail to come. It always makes me very unhappy. Why is that?
Asked Frog.
Because I never get any mail,
said Toad.
Not ever?
Asked Frog.
No, never,
said Toad.
No one has ever sent me a letter. Every day my mailbox is empty. That is why waiting for the mail is a sad time for me.
Frog and Toad sat on the porch, feeling sad together. And then Frog said,
I have to go home now, Toad. There is something I must do.
Frog hurried home. He found a pencil and a piece of paper. He wrote on the paper. He put the paper in an envelope. On the envelope he wrote, a letter for Toad. Frog ran out of his house. He saw a snail that he knew.
Snail,
said Frog,
please take this letter to Toad's house and put it in his mailbox.
Sure,
said the snail.
right away.
And then Frog ran back to Toad's house. Toad was in bed, taking a nap.
Toad,
said Frog,
I think you should get up and wait for the mail some more. No,
said Toad.
I am tired of waiting for the mail.
Frog looked out of the window at the Toad's mailbox. The snail was not there yet.
Toad,
said Frog,
you never know when someone may send you a letter. No,
said Toad.
I do not think anyone will ever send me a letter.
Frog looked out of the window. The snail was not there yet.
But Toad,
said Frog,
someone may send you a letter today. Don't be silly,
said Toad.
No one has ever sent me a letter before. And no one will send me a letter today.
Frog looked out of the window. The snail was not there.
Frog, why do you keep looking out of the window?
Asked Toad.
Because now I'm waiting for the mail,
said Frog.
But there will not be any,
said Toad.
Oh yes, there will,
said Frog.
Because I have sent you a letter. You have?
said Toad.
What did you write in the letter?
Frog said,
I wrote, Dear Toad, I am glad that you are my best friend. Your best friend, Frog. Oh,
said Toad.
That makes a very good letter.
Then Frog and Toad went out onto the front porch to wait for the mail. They sat there, feeling happy together. Frog and Toad waited a long time. 4 days later, the snail got to Toad's house and gave him the letter from Frog. Toad was very pleased to have it. The end. Oh, what a very sweet thing a frog could do for his very best friend. Why, I'm always so happy when I get a letter. It always makes my day feel just a little more special. Well then, I said I would read this last story. And it's almost past your bedtime. So come along, it's time for bed. Get all snuggled up underneath your blanket. Hold your favorite stuffy tight, 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 so they know they are loved. Oh, and dream some wonderful dreams. And while you're having some wonderful dreams, I'll find us a story for next time. How does that sound? Well then, always remember, Mama Bunny loves you very, very much. Good night.